Hello students, it's Professor Russo again, and when we last spoke we talked about those children who are reticent or those children who don't respond to open-ended prompts or open-ended questions when you're trying to break the ice. And we discussed how to get more direct and what you do after you get more direct, the kinds of questions that you follow up with. We also looked closely at that hourglass metaphor questioning strategy. And we discussed how to ask questions in generally a particular sequence. Now we're going to look at, once the child makes some kind of disclosure, once the child has opened up to you, how do we approach that? What kinds of questions do we ask? What are some of the common issues that arise? So as always, first things first. These things may seem simple and straightforward, but they need to be said. First of all, as hard as it is, you have to try to relax. Try not to stare at the child. And one thing I learned when I watched professional interviewers early in my career, I was amazed at how patient they were, how they paused, how they used silence to their advantage. And that's something that good interviewers learn to do. Remember, these are small children. We may have asked the child a question that's not easily understandable. It might take some time for them to think about it and process it. So pausing is quite important. When you ask a question, wait there. Just keep waiting. Allow the child to think it out, and then they'll give you a response. And more importantly, or perhaps as importantly, when they do give you a response, don't jump right in and ask a new question. And certainly you don't want to step on their response. You don't ever want to interrupt them. And I see that happening a lot. I review a lot of videos, and you want to avoid stepping on or interrupting them, that's for sure. But even when they provide a response, wait a few heartbeats before you ask your next question. Perhaps they have something else to offer. Perhaps they're still thinking about or processing their answer. And if you look over here, you'll see some of the bullet points that address what I've just explained. And the last one is about minimal repetition. When you're listening to the child, you want to let them know that you are listening, and you want to give them mild words of encouragement, not to encourage them to say any particular answer, but it's just to let them know you're interested in what they're saying. Okay, Those kinds of things are very effective. And if the child expresses themselves and you move on to another question, you might want to say, this is called partial repetition. Okay, so you said that you walked across the street. And then you ask your follow-up question. What happened when you got to the grocery store and the man called you in? You're referring back to, you're repeating what they've already offered to give them some context and to let them know you're listening and to address what they just said and move on to the next series of questions so that they can explain in further detail the issue.